How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the Pokemon TCG 2026 rotation and what are my thoughts regarding it. This is just going to be a short discussion about what I feel like is going to be the state of the game moving forward. So stay tuned, guys. I will be catching you guys very shortly. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe and click the bell for notifications if you guys want to hear more discussion videos like this. Today we're just going to be talking just casually about what my thoughts are about the 2026 rotation coming up and what are my expectations moving forward. So I've already been kind of prepping for the rotation since November/December because I was already kind of anticipating Japan doing their rotation, I think at the end of this month or February, if I remember correctly. So I wanted to, and I usually start preparing for rotation in terms of play testing right around the time, like right around the time Japan starts to rotate, because I want to be able to kind of see how the Japanese player base reacts to the rotation and see if they have any ideas on how to address some of the consistency issues that may arise. And for those who don't know what the rotation is or what rotations are, Pokemon has this thing in order to maintain a healthy game state and make sure that people are still playing the new stuff, investing in new product, and as well as using it, and just to make sure that the game doesn't get stale. They rotate every year. They rotate the earliest block, which is usually the one that was released. I guess that has been that was introduced 2 years ago. Usually that a year or two, yeah, about 2 years ago. The oldest sets in the current rotation usually get rotated out. So for in this situation, it's basically cards with the G designation. Me trying to figure out what G is, but the G the G designation on the lower left, and some of the cards that do get rotated out are pretty impactful. Obviously, everybody's been talking about Nest Ball being rotated out, and that already gets addressed when we get Pokepad post Ascended Heroes. But I think a lot of people, and Iono obviously, and you can substitute the Iono by playing Judge for now until they release something a little bit better. But we don't know if there's going to be releasing anything in terms of hand disruption. So I think for us, by April 10th, we're going to be saying goodbye to Iono and Nest Ball. But we do get Pokepad as a replacement. Another card that gets rotated out is Counter Capture. So that's why a lot of lists, I think that's one of the reasons why I've been noticing a lot of lists, Boss's Orders has been kind of creeping up in higher quantity. That's one possible reason, but the other reason why we're starting to see less and less counter captures in the deck too is because we're entering a stage in the meta where you need to be gusting at any stage, whether you're ahead or behind, and having just multiple copies of Boss's Orders is fine, and it stays in rotation because we get Corbin or Corbu, so it renews itself, and we get it gets the, I think, I or J label, which means we get to keep Boss's Orders for another 2+ years, which it feels like that's what they usually are doing. Is the generic supporters like Professor's Research, Boss's Orders, Ultra Ball, obviously, I think they're intending to keep those around, like a small set of like just generic staples that are either just fair or they've been power creep to the point where they're no longer OP. And Ultra Ball used to be considered OP, but I think Pokemon corrected that mistake because Ultra Ball is just a necessary generic staple. But another thing that does get rotated out that I'm worried about, even though we got replacements for it, is Super Rod. Super Rod allowed you to shuffle back the choices between Pokemon or Energy back into the deck, three 3 of either combination, and with a lot of decks requiring some form of kind of refresh to prevent you not only to recover some of that resources back into the deck, but also to prevent you from decking out, because the meta has gotten pretty fast. Although I think moving forward it might start off kind of slow, so it really depends. We also, like, a lot of decks also lose access to early game supporters like Squawkabilly, but we get it replaced with Meowth come perfect order, which Meowth is basically kind of the replacement of Squawk, because it now you get to search a supporter. So we get basically Papulele GX slash Luminion V back into the meta, which is really nice. What I'm anticipating might come back is Quick Ball, just because of Canaria, or Canary from Pokemon Legends ZA, and how she kind of like dons the Quick Ball design. So that could be a possibility. And overall, I am like, in my thoughts, I'm already starting to think about what decks I'm going to be playing post rotation. Like, I'm going to be, again, I'll probably do another video about my playtest cycle, like what I'm having, because honestly, I feel like the game had, like, the current block that we were playing was kind of, it was good for the most part, but once I think Black and White, and to the extent Mega Evolution, kicked off, it really turned the meta to very stale. But where one hit KO decks were pretty much the standard, like, run. You get to, I saw that way more often with Goldingo, and to some extent Sterilege was there for a little bit, but I think it dropped off after people realized it really does have a bad not only a bad Dragapult matchup, but Gardevoir just eats it alive, because it'll just swing into Sterilege with single prize attackers. And with the advent of Alakazam with the powerful hand, you can easily, like, just handle the Sterilege and one shot them back. Like, right now we're in this weird stage where, like, one hit KO decks are really just really strong. And as someone who likes to play, like, very mid-range and high, like, decks with high skill expression, like my friend, like, my favorite deck is Zoroark, which has a very high skill expression rate. Like, a lot of people will say, oh, it's a pretty easy deck. It's not, actually. It's a really, really difficult deck. And with N Zekrom, it does allow it to kind of keep up in the damage race, but it's still a very, very high skill deck. And when we get Ascended Heroes, I do expect Zoroark to kind of push through post rotation too, because not only do we have basically Zekrom to replace the Darmanitan for most of our matchups, but it makes even the Goldango matchup a little bit easier, because now instead of hitting for 170, we're hitting for 250. And if, let's say, for some reason we had damage counters on one Pokemon, we get to toss onto the Goldango and just kill it with rather ease. So that's something that I think is good. Now that, and my hated deck, the deck that I hate the most, it gets rotated out, Goldango. I really didn't like the deck, because I felt like it promoted a very simplified game state, and it had a very simple game plan that did well. Like, even if you were to try to disrupt the deck, because the deck could draw to essentially have, not only do you get the draw 3 off of the Lunatone, but you get a minimum draw 4 off of the 3 copies of Goldango that you run onto the board. 2 from the, you get to draw 2 from the one in the active. If you're able to put it back into the active, you get to draw another one into the active. You get to draw an additional 2. But if not, you get to draw 2 off of the coin bonus on the active one. You get to draw 1 from the coin bonus on the bench, and then draw another 1 from the other coin bonus, and then you get to draw 3. So you're essentially, like, even if you bring the hand size down, you draw enough, like, pieces that you get into, like, your energy retrieval, like your superior energy retrievals, and you just one hit KO, like, without any, like, meaningful, like, counterplay. Like, the issue with, like, there are decks that check Goldango really well, but those decks also get checked by other decks, and Goldango like literally beats the decks that check that counter beats the decks that counter the Goldango counter. So it ended up being this weird cycle where it's either the decks that beat Goldango that make it to the top, or Goldango itself just makes it to the top, and it ended up just being very like exhausting. And I play against Goldango way too often at my locals whenever I go, and it's just really just like it's a really annoying matchup. And since I play Zoroark, like the only counterplay I get against that deck is leveraging the Toedscruel, and if I don't get it, I just get instantly punished. So it's like sure, you can play Darmanitan to help mitigate some of it a little bit, but and Lopunny does somewhat mitigate it by being able to one-hit shot it. You may be able to get closer to a one-hit kill with it, but it's still just like, to me, I didn't like decks that didn't like that had very little thinking behind the plays, very little problem solving. Because like for Goldango, it was like the way to solve a lot of its problems when it got like the only way like it essentially had a hard matchup is if it bricked, and if it didn't, no matter how many times you try to disrupt that hand, they'll have a way to get out of it just by the fact that they can either draw 3 off of the Lunatone, draw 4 off of the Goldangos, like 4+ cards off of the Goldango, and you just sit there going, okay, I whittled their hand to no reason because they just regenerated it with very little commitment and very little investment to begin with. So like I don't want it to be just a Goldango rant, but yeah, I'm glad that it's gonna get rotated out. As much as I respect people who play it, I just didn't like the deck at all. And it was always like just an annoying to play against if I'm not playing if I'm playing Zoroark. But if I'm playing anything other than Zoroark, like Charizard or my Dragapult deck, or even my Gardevoir list, I wouldn't sweat. I didn't lose much sleep against those matches because it was a much easier, like it had a much better matchup. But since I like to play Zoroark only because it's one of the few decks other than Charizard to really like allow me to problem solve. Like Charizard EX is one of my favorite decks because of the fact that even though Pidgeot made the deck easier to be more accurate, it was still a very hard deck to play because Charizard scales by how fast your opponent plays, how fast your opponent like tempos you. It reacts to your opponent's like tempo swings. Like if the more aggressive they play, the better Charizard gets into that matchup if they play it right and they focus more on utility. And not only that, with Dusknoir in some lists, you could actually go aggro very easy with that deck. But in most cases, it still was like you had to kind of play to lose the early game to basically catch up and win very, very like brutally. Which is one of the reasons why I like the deck, because it required you to be very disciplined on when to attack and when to swing. Just like how Zoroark is, you have to be very disciplined with that deck. Otherwise, you just get mollywopped. Like, anybody who thinks Zoroark and Charizard are the easiest decks really hasn't played them at a high, like at a very competitive level, or really hasn't encountered players that really put you in that situation where you actually have to think about it. Like, and even Dragapult was a deck that, even though like the game plan is a lot more simpler than Charizard, there was still a lot of thought process behind it. Same with Gardevoir. Like those decks were like basically any of those stage 2 decks, it was very like you had to really think about how to play the deck. But then when you had decks like Goldango and Ceruledge who were just you could kind of turn your brain off. Raging Bolt was like that to some extent, and I'm pretty sure it's still going around. And Terra Box, oh my god, Terra Box is a really hard deck to pilot. Like you have to know what you're doing. And the only reason why I haven't picked up Terror Box is just I have so many decks, and since I started vending, I didn't even have the opportunity to pick up like some of the Terror Box pieces. I am slowly wanting to build it. I might try the EV Terror Box variant and even do the Ogre Box variant. Later on, I might show you guys those. Because I do think Terror Box, like the top 3, like I think going post rotation, the top 3 decks that require a lot of skill to play are still going to be Dragapult, Zoroark, and in my opinion, Terror Box, and even a close 4th, the Kangaskhan deck. Because Kangaskhan loses a lot of good support, like pieces moving post rotation. It loses Bravery Charm, loses Super Rod, and I think it also it loses all the TMs if I remember correctly. Even like TM Energize just gets rotated out. So the decks and like consistency engine, the ability to consistently accelerate energy becomes a lot slower. The only way you can the only way you could possibly like play Kangaskhan is it moving forward. One of the ways that you could possibly play Kangaskhan moving forward actually is fusing it with Joltik Box, which is something I might profile. I definitely, if you guys want to see that variant and how to build it post rotation, comment down below, because that is something I am messing with right now. Let's see what other things that get rotated out that besides Super Rod, Nest Ball, Iono, and Counter Capture. I'm trying to think what else gets rotated out that is like it's gonna be painful to see it go. I think that's just about it in terms of the most. Oh yeah, I think even what is it, another deck that gets victimized, if I remember correctly. Let me just double check it right now so I don't like jump the gun. Oh yeah, another piece that besides, oh yeah, obviously Kangaskhan also loses Penny. Like, so it loses the ability to like be able to reset after you damage it, so it becomes a very it becomes very fragile. Now that I think about it, because without Penny or even Turo, like any way to like just bounce it back after receiving damage counters, ooh, that deck just becomes like an easy, like you have to actually be careful now to play your megas, your basic megas, because whew, all it takes is just now it's susceptible to 2-hit KOs, and that is kind of scary. Oh yeah, and even Raging Bolt loses consistency because Sada's Vitality rotates out. So like there's a lot of decks that just get like kneecapped right from the go. Like we even lose, like I think Roaring Moon goes bye-bye post rotation. And what else gets like kind of rotated to oblivion? Just looking at it right now just to be sure. That's Goldango, obviously. Iron Hands also goes bye-bye. I'm glad that Pokemon was just kind of stupid. Being able to like win, like make, like get easy prize trades. And yeah, I guess Alakazam takes a hit too because Tulip goes bye-bye. So, but it doesn't really lose anything. And oh yeah, Toedscruel goes too. Oof. Yeah, and I think Superior too, right? Let me just do a quick check on I'm on my computer at the same time. Yeah, I think it does go too. So it's like there's a lot of good things that just get nuked, and a lot of good decks just get cratered. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. Now that I think about it, like a lot of the older like nuisance, the older threats get rotated and leave room for newer ones. Obviously Gardevoir goes too, and I'm sad that it does, but I think it needed to go because Gardevoir literally suppresses a lot of fighting decks that want to kind of come out of the woodwork, like Lucario. Like the Mega Lucario deck doesn't get to like stand if Gardevoir is around. But once Gardevoir kind of rotates, I think the only threat that they need to keep an eye out for is maybe Alakazam. I don't know how Alakazam might actually function. Kind of not because it loses stuff. It's more like I'm curious at what decks will rise up that may check Alakazam. I know Dragon Pult just sits like craps on that deck really easily, or rather, not really easily. It just has a really good Alakazam matchup from my testing against it. So it's kind of interesting to see what's gonna develop in this meta now that I like seriously think about it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the 2026 rotation kind of just like develops, and it's gonna be kind of just very interesting. So that's just about it for this video. I don't want to rant on for too long. It's already been like 20 minutes of recording, just me talking about the rotation. But if you guys like more discussions like this, please comment below what topics would you like me to discuss that are Pokemon, One Piece, or even Vice Shorts related, or even like TCG related in general. Because I am going to be doing another video where I discuss or reflect on my... I'm probably gonna wait 2 more months before I do an event, like my experience as a vendor, because then I can at least make it like a 6-month, like 6 months in as a vendor video, than just talking about it now when I've only started in August, and it's only been like, I think about 4 months, 3 to 4 months already. So I want to keep that in the kind of the woodworks. I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe. Also crack that like button. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.